Hey, we are ready to start chapter 7 of The Heavenly Spheres by Helena Aguilar and Luis Ribeiro. We're starting on page 83. I was like 83, 84. 83. I have a short-term memory. It's hard to remember those quick little details all the time. Okay. Chapter 7, The Houses. In previous chapters, we discussed the celestial elements of astrology, the planets, and the signs. This chapter focuses on the terrestrial component of astrology, the houses, which are created by dividing the sky into 12 parts. This division varies according to the location used in the chart's calculation, which makes the houses the most individualized factor in the horoscope. Without them, no astrological chart exists, and one can only make generic interpretations. The astrological houses have two reference points as a basis: the horizon and the meridian. The horizontal the horizon differentiates the stars that are visible above the horizon and the stars that are hidden below the horizon. In the sky, the eastern and western points of the horizon are crucial because the stars rise in the east and set in the west. The east defines the ascendant, since it's at this point that the stars rise, ascend, in the sky. The west point defines the descendant, which the stars descend and set. The meridian represents the point at which the stars culminate, where they reach the highest place in the sky, along with their nascent ascendant and setting descendant trajectory. On this meridian, there are 2 points. There is the medium coeli, where the stars culminate above the horizon, and at the opposite point, you have the imum coeli, the IC, the lowest point. The medium coeli and the imum coeli make up the vertical axis of this horoscope. Thus, the stars always rise in the east, culminate in the meridian, and descend. What is it? Wait. And descend in the west. They take an identical route in the lower hemisphere, returning to the rise at the ascendant about 24 hours later. This cycle, in which the whole sky appears to make a revolution in 24 hours, is a natural consequence of Earth's rotation. Because it is so evident, it's called primary motion. The hemispheres. The ascendant and the descendant make up the horizontal axis of the horoscope and divide the celestial sphere into 2 hemispheres. The part that lies above the horizon is the superior hemisphere, and the one below the horizon is called the inferior hemisphere. The general rule is that the stars located above the horizon signify things that are public, visible, and expressed in a social environment, while the stars situated below the horizon represent more private and less visible matters. The sky can also be divided into 2 hemispheres by the axis defined by the MC and the IC. In this case, we get Oriental Hemisphere, or the ascendant, located to the east. It's funny, I'm wondering how this gets filmed and if I'll be opposite. That'll be interesting. In this case, we get the Oriental Hemisphere, or the ascendant, located to the east, and on the side of the ascendant, in the Occidental Hemisphere, or descendant, located to the west, on the side of the descendant. Did I skip a sentence? I'm going to read that one again. The sky can be divided into 2 hemispheres by the axis defined by the MCIC. In this case, we get the oriental hemisphere, or the ascendant, located to the east on the side of the ascendant. And the occidental, that's the sentence I missed, the occidental hemisphere, or descendant, located to the west on the side of the descendant. So when you take one line and two lines, you get quadrants. Into the next chapter, or headline, whatever. The quadrants. With these two axes, the sky is divided into 4 quadrants. The quadrants are numbered in the direction set by the primary motion in a clockwise direction and have the following characteristics. The first quadrant, which goes from the ascendant to the midheaven, is called the oriental or vernal, related to the spring. It is masculine, hot, and moist, and has a sanguine temperament. It symbolizes infancy. The second quadrant goes from the midheaven to the descendant, and it's called the northern or estival, related to the summer. It is feminine, hot, and dry. It has a choleric temperament, and it is symbolized by youth. The third quadrant goes from the descendant to the IC. It is called occidental or autumnal. Related to autumn, it is masculine, cold, and dry. It has a melancholic temperament, and it symbolizes maturity. The fourth quadrant goes from the IC to the ascendant and is called southern or what? Hymal. Hiemal. Hymal, related to winter. It's so crazy reading new words or words I've never seen before and getting the definition right away, but still it's just like Hymal. Where does that word come from? I love it. So this fourth quadrant is feminine, cold, and moist, and it has a phlegmatic temperament. It symbolizes old age. Important, this division is very different from the divisions proposed by the contemporary astrological movement post-9th century. The traditional classification presented here is based on the daily motion of the planets through the houses, while the contemporary approach, omitted here because it's commonly found in various manuals, is based upon the order of the houses. I'm in a book study club right now, and we're reading Demetra George's oh god, I'm so bad with remembering things. Her first, not her first book, but of the two big books, the first one, which is all about assessing planets and planetary quality, and it was going over masculine and feminine, and it totally went over this like this masculine to feminine quadrant, and applying that to planets and those different quadrants as one of the things to determine masculine and feminine. So it's really cool reading it in here again. Okay, the 12 houses. Each quadrant is divided into 3 different areas, indicating the beginning, middle, and end of a cycle of planetary ascension. Thus, we get 12 divisions known as astrological houses. Each house represents a specific area in which the signs and the planets act. The 12 houses are numbered in ascending order or counterclockwise. Just below the horizon is the first house, or the first place to ascend. After that, the second house, or the second place to ascend, and so on. Like to ascend is to come up, right? So as it turns the chart, like the first house is moving across the horizon, and then the second house will become the first house as the 24 hours pass, with the third and the fourth. This numbering system can be confusing since beginning students often conclude that the movement of the planets and the houses proceeds the same direction from first to second, etc. Although this seems logical, it is not what actually happens with respect to the houses. In their daily motion, the planets go from second house to the first, where they cross the ascendant, proceeding into the 12th, the 11th, etc., Thus, there is a difference between the movement of the planets of the zodiac counterclockwise and the houses clockwise. To understand this apparent inconsistency, it is necessary to remember that the houses are slices of the sky, traced across the horizon and local meridian. The houses, therefore, are a static reference system that does not move relative to the horizon. The first house is always cast. So the first house is always in the east, and the 10th always above, etc. What moves the zodiac along with the planets, following the primary motion from east to west and circling around all 12 houses in 24 hours. Each house has its beginning in a degree of the zodiac known as the cusp. In a horoscope, the most noteworthy cusps are the ascendant, cusp of the first house, the midheaven, cusp of the 10th house, and descendant, cusp of the 7th house, and the IC, cusp of the 4th house. The remaining cusps are calculated from these points. Are called intermediary cusps. The cusp is the point of greatest expression of the house. Its position in the zodiac defines the qualities of the house. For example, the cusp of the 11th house in Aries defines. What chart are we using for reference? Okay, let's see. For example, the cusp of the 11th house in Aries defines the qualities of that sign: dynamism, impetuosity, etc. For this area of life, friends, allies, etc. Although they are equal divisions of the sky, 30 degrees, when they are projected onto the zodiac, the houses are somewhat distorted. Thus, a chart may have houses with different sizes. The difference depends on the location of the Earth for which the chart is calculated. The degrees of the zodiac are rising and culminating at that moment and upon the type of mathematical division used in that calculation. Excuse me. Note that the size of the house does not necessarily imply a greater or lesser importance. Its significance depends on the planet's position there. Classification of houses. Let's see, angularity. So important. Like the planets and signs, the astrological houses can be classified in several ways. The most important classification is angularity, which divides them into three types: angular, succedent, and cadent. Houses 1, 4, 7, and 10 are called angular houses. Their cusps correspond to one of the four major angles: the ascendant, the IC, the descendant, and the midheaven, respectively. Planets positioned in these houses have a very powerful expression. The succedent houses, so named because they succeed the angular houses, they are next in line, are second, which succeeds the first, the 11th, which succeeds the 10th, the 8th, which succeeds the 7th, and the 5th, which succeeds the 4th. Planets located in the succedent houses have a medium level of expression. The cadent houses, from the Latin verb cadere, meaning to fall, are so named because the planets in them fall away from the angles. These are the 12th, which falls away from the ascendant, the 9th, which falls away from the 10th, the 6th, which falls away from the 11th, and the 3rd, which falls away from the 4th. Planets located in these houses have little power of expression. Angularity is directly related to the diurnal motion of the planets. The power of expression of a house increases the closer it is to the angle. Having passed this angular high point, the planet falls from the angle to a cadent house and expends its power. It begins to recuperate when it passes into the adjoining succedent house, returning to its maximum power in the subsequent angular house. Note that in a chart, the planets are actually stationed in a specific position. Note that in a chart, the planets are actually stationed in a specific position. This dynamic concept serves only to explain the various house classifications. Aside from the more general gradations of power, we can establish um, we can establish gradations of strength between the 12 houses. The strongest are evidently the 4 angular houses, but of these, the first is the most powerful, followed by the 10th, the 7th, and the 4th. Of the succedent houses, the strongest is the 11th, followed by the 5th, 2nd, and 8th. Of the cadence, the strongest is the 9th, followed by the 3rd, the 6th, and the 12th. I hadn't really seen it like denoted or marked that way, and like 1, 10, 7, 4, or like, yeah. Cool. There are, however, exceptions. Although cadent houses as a general rule weaker than succedents, the 9th and 3rd houses, despite being cadent, have a greater expression than the 2nd and 8th houses, which are succedent. This exception is tied to the relationship between the houses and the ascendant, which we will discuss now. Thus, the sequence of power of the houses is as follows. First, the most powerful, the 10th, the 7th, the 4th, 11th. Oh, this is the sequence of power. Okay, is as follows. The most powerful, starting with first, 10th, 7th, 4th, 11th, 3rd, 2nd, 8th, 6th, and 12th. And the 12th is the weakest. Although largely accepted, this sequence can generally vary in association with a few specific interpretive methods. Gender. Another form of classifying houses concerns gender. The houses are considered masculine. The houses considered masculine are odd numbered. First, third, fifth, seventh, ninth, and 11th, and those considered feminine are even numbered. Second, fourth, sixth, eighth, 10th, and 12th. This classification is not very significant in practical terms. So it's there, but we don't actually use it. Okay. I think I'm gonna chill here and come back soon. Thank you.